Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Supporting Parents and Kids Through Cancer. We're so glad that you are here for this important conversation about helping families navigate cancer together with strength, understanding, and support. Today, you're going to hear from parents, caregivers, and health professionals who will share practical tools, developmentally appropriate strategies, and emotional support to help children cope with a cancer diagnosis in the family. We know parenting through an illness brings unique challenges. Balancing your own feelings while supporting your children isn't easy. From preparing for the school year to fostering open communication and building resilience, we hope this session gives you fresh insights and the confidence to guide your family through these difficult moments. Throughout the webinar, we invite you to share your questions and comments in the chat. We'll set aside some time at the end to answer your questions and reflect on your thoughts during the Q&A. We'd like to take a moment to recognize EISAI and Lilly for their continued support to our mission, their shared commitment to empowering patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals plays a vital role in advancing the conversation and resources that make a meaningful difference. Before we get started, we'd like to shine a light on the Thank Guide and the incredible nonprofit partners who are part of today's network, Kesem, and the Pickles Group for their participation in this webinar. Each of these amazing organizations supports families facing a parent's cancer, offering safe spaces, peer connections, and lasting communities to help parents, kids, and teens heal and thrive. It's an honor to work alongside them. Looking forward to trusted resources to support thyroid, head, and neck cancer survivors? Visit the THANC, that's THANC guide, a comprehensive site designed to newly diagnosed patients, survivors, and caregivers. You'll find reliable information, helpful tools, and inspiration to guide you through every step of the cancer journey. Now let's meet our wonderful panelists. I'd like to start with Trish. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah. My name's Trish Burton. I am a head and neck cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2022, and my treatment went through 2022 and 2023. I'm 2 years out, and happy to report that I'm doing really, really well.
Thank you, Trish. And John, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm John Burton. I'm Trish's husband. I was her caregiver during that whole journey. I work with Thank on caregiver resources and a podcast called the Caregiver Cast. I'm the executive director of ORCA, which is the Oral Cancer Awareness Foundation. And I'm super proud to be with Thank and love doing this stuff.
Oh, welcome to you both. And Haley.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. My name's Haley Pollack, and I'm the executive director of Bright Spot Network. I was diagnosed with colon cancer when I was 37, and I had a 6-month-old baby and a 3-year-old. And at the time, I couldn't find the resources I needed. And I went on to found Bright Spot Network, and we support parents that are navigating a cancer diagnosis while raising young kids.
Kelsey?
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm Kelsey Mora. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer for Pickles Group. And so I'm a dual certified child life specialist and licensed therapist. And at Pickles Group, I help design programs for kids who are facing their parents' cancer to connect with other kids, as well as education and content for clinicians and parents who need support supporting their kids through their parents' cancer. Thank you for having me.
Oh, Jay.
Hi, I'm Jay Stillwell. I'm the CEO of Kesem. Kesem supports children through and beyond their parents' cancer with programs that are fun-filled and creative and create a lasting community between kids and other kids, as well as between kids and college student volunteers. I'm also the husband of someone who passed away from cancer, and the father of a now 17-year-old daughter who I parented through that.
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you here. And I am Genevieve Lowry. I'm a certified child life specialist and I'm faculty at Bank Street College, and I will be moderating this discussion. And now we'd like to hear from you, who you are, who is joining us in the room today. So we're going to post a poll, and if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and which description that we post best describes you. Wonderful. This is so great. There's so many here that have someone that is close to them that has had cancer. I think that's really wonderful that you are here to seek out ways to support to support family and friends. And there's some medical professionals I think it's really exciting to have in the space also looking for ways that can better support their patients that have families. All right, so if you have questions that come up for today's speakers or about any of the topics that we're talking about, please feel free again to post those questions into the Q&A tab. So let's kick things off. And I'd like to start with you, Trish. What was important to you that your children understood about your diagnosis and treatment?
So our daughter was a sophomore in high school. She was about 14, 15 years old when I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed over the summertime. So, school year wise, it was, I guess, a good time to receive the diagnosis because we were home and we had the time to kind of fully understand and kind of come to grips with what was happening before our daughter started the school year. So, so just so you know, that's where we come from, that age range of the high school years. The number one thing that we wanted her to know was the survival rate. We were very kind of honest with her and clear with her. And fortunately, I have a very high rate of survivorship, so that immediately was the first thing. Once I was told, that was the first thing that I told her, and I think that she really clung on to that. And she, like, when we would check in with her throughout our cancer journey as a family, she always said, I knew mommy was going to be okay. I know mommy's going to be okay. So she kind of naturally, I think, as a child, took on a really optimistic view of what was happening. I think in general, kids are really resilient, way more resilient than we think they can be. It was also really important for her to have choice, a lot of choices in what part of the journey, once we got started, that she wanted to be part of. So, we would say, something's happening. Do you want to know? Mommy has a doctor's appointment. Do you want to know? Do you want to come? When I had my surgery, we gave her the choice of whether or not she wanted to visit. And again, she was 14, 15 years old. So she was old enough to, kind of talk through that decision making. She did come to visit me once after my surgery. It's not an easy surgery to go through, and she walked into that room, and I don't know I don't know if I could have done it, but she stood there. She was stoic. She was amazing. She was brave. Her friends came with her and waited downstairs for her. They came to the hospital at 5 o'clock in the morning. So she was able to tell us what she thought she could handle. She also came to my first meeting with my oncologist, and the oncologist was great on the phone, and really said, if you have kids, if you have a daughter, you can bring her with you. We'll answer her questions. And they were great. We sat in a conference room. They were very age appropriate with her. They said, we can talk as a you can talk as a family. I can talk to you alone. Her biggest question was, is mommy going to lose her hair? So I think, the kids see the outside stuff first, and that often can be the things that hit them. So that was really her biggest question. After that, she really was not involved in coming. She never came to me for treatment. So we also tried to keep her schedule as normal as possible. But I think, you know, giving her a lot of choice in the matter, and answering any questions that she had along the way was really helpful.
Wonderful. It sounds like there was a lot of being honest and really a very strong trusting relationship that that through giving her those choices really allowed her the space to feel safe to ask questions and to attend what she wanted to attend. Were there any concerns that you had, whether that be before you shared with her or throughout the cancer journey? Were there concerns that you had for your children during your treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest concern once the school year started was support, right? How our so you know, I always say that cancer is going to change the structure of your family, probably forever, right? Our family will never be the same as it was before my diagnosis. So I think people need to be realistic about that. So we kind of allowed each other to, you know, feel all the feels, that knowing that we were going to have good days, bad days, and we were going to have them at different times. So with John is my primary caregiver, you know, to lose um the mom in the family was big. You know, John lost me as the second person in the household. So I wasn't driving, I wasn't cooking, I wasn't working. So he took on, as the caregiver, he took on everything. He also took on totally managing our daughter's schedule on his own. So he was supporting me and he was supporting our daughter. And I think the biggest thing for us, for her, was to maintain her normalcy. So we, knowing that our whole world had just been blown up, once she started school, we wanted her schedule to be as normal as possible. So as I was going through treatment, John was kind of taking care of me during the day, and my treatment lined up where we were able to then pick her up at the end of the school day. So I would have treatment during the day and then pick her up, and then we would all kind of come home and be together. But, you know, we also definitely needed levels of support system. So she had, you know, about 2 or 3 friends that we knew if we were stuck at the hospital, she could get rides. You know, and we kind of had levels of support. So it was really mostly her friendship group was the first level of support, those moms, those kids, and then family support kind of came second, just because geographically it was easier for her, and we were full of gratitude for her friends and her friends' parents for helping us out with it. But we really wanted her. Our main concern was to keep her schedule normal. I think also communicating with her school. Um, you know, I think so. I'm a teacher also, and I think it's really important that when big things happen within families, that the school knows about them. So we contacted her guidance counselor. You know, the administration knew. We didn't communicate with individual teachers, but we knew that her guidance counselor was watching her, and we knew that he would communicate with the teachers. You know, because we saw her and we saw what was happening at home, but we also wanted to be aware of any big changes that were happening. If her behavior changed at school, or her social groups changed at school, or her grades changed at school, we needed that support network to, you know, be able to communicate those things with us.
Kelsey, are there common concerns that parents have about sharing information with their children, or even common concerns that parents have around um, relationships and continuation of their normal routines and regular activities?
Yeah, it's such a good question. Absolutely. And I think so much of it depends on the age or development of the child, but certainly younger kids are often comparing cancer to other illnesses that they're familiar with. So they might worry about, is it contagious? Can I catch it? They might think it's going to be short term in terms of treatment. They might be looking for typical symptoms like a runny nose or a fever or cough. And so really explaining that cancer is a different type of sickness can be really helpful for those younger kiddos. But hearing Trish talk about those teenage years, certainly not uncommon for older kids to wonder, how is this going to affect me? Or maybe to lean more on those friends over family, just because peers are their world. And so I love how you demonstrated, Trish, just like really keeping things consistent and normal for your daughter as well, because school and friendships were probably and are some of the most important things to get her through that really difficult time. In the beginning, I think a lot of parents worry, how much should I share and how should I do that? And so, one tip that can be really helpful is thinking about what kids really need to know. So, in your experience, Trish, you were having a big surgery. And so, your daughter needed to know that you were going to be in the hospital and that your appearance might change or your abilities might change. And so, thinking about what does a kid need to know? What are they going to see? What are they going to observe? What's going to affect them? And then pausing and seeing what they want to know more about. So I talk about that as the need to know and then the want to know. When we talk about what they need to know, kids will start to ask questions about what they want to know more about, or they might not. They might feel like, okay, I've got enough information for now. And then also, as Trish spoke to, is the following up and updating them as things shift and change, or there's new information. Having those ongoing conversations as things evolve. So those are some of the most common questions, but of course, there's probably a lot more. So I'm happy to take any other questions.
Thank you, Kelsey. I think the framing of the what kids need to know and what they want to know is a really important framing. It sort of gives that space for parents to be like, okay, here's what I think is just enough information, and then waiting for children or teens to really figure out what more do they need. Sometimes they need a little bit of a space, a little bit of a pause in there, and the opportunity to come back to that, knowing that they can come back to that conversation and asking more questions about what is it that I want to know more about or not want to know more about. So
Yeah.
thank you. I think that's really great.
I'll just add, I think a parent's job, sometimes as parents, we think our job is to fix things or make it better, to have this conversation and close up all the loose ends. But actually, I think a parent's most important job is building that trust and honesty so that kids feel comfortable coming back to the conversation. So it's actually good to leave it open and to help kids know that they can come back to the conversation versus feeling like there's some sort of closed outcome or end goal. So hopefully that can provide some relief to parents who feel like they have to get through it all in one conversation. That's really not the goal. The goal is really just to establish that communication and help kids know that it's an okay topic.
Cool. And with that, John or Trish, what did you guys do as a family to really stay connected, or and what ways did you communicate information? Were there specific times that you set aside to do that, or did you just had it happen organically as things came up and treatment, or what were the ways in which that you maintained those opportunities for conversation and connection with your daughter?
Want me to do it? Okay. Well, what Kelsey said is so spot on. We, in Trish's particular case, if we had said anything other than the authentic truth, it would have been obvious. I mean, she went through a big surgery. It was visible. So, and so the 100% correct. Like from the get-go, we were very, very honest, and then that made her feel like everything that she could trust us in a conversation later on, and we didn't sugarcoat. We didn't necessarily plan like a specific time to talk about it, because we kind of felt like that would mean that there's times when you can't talk about it, and and we just had an open dialogue all the way through. We spent a lot. I mean, in Trish's particular case, she almost lost the power of speech for a while. So, or the gift of speech rather. So we would spend, she would get done with treatment and we would all just climb in bed. And Gramercy would do her homework and I would be on the laptop and, Trish would be in bed. And just that nonverbal time was so important too. And then, the other thing too, that another form of communication was our vulnerability. I mean, she was old enough that we suffered with her. She would, I would cry. She would come take care of me. She would cry. I would come take care of her. But that vulnerability helped us when it came time to talk too, because she also knew she wasn't being sold anything that wasn't true to make her feel better. But at the same time, she saw, she got to see people suffering together through something. And that was, there was one point where Trish said, she was crying and she said, I feel like I'm not being a mother and I'm not available to her. I can't do anything. And she's losing her mom. And so I went and talked to Gramercy about it, and I said, mom feels like she's not being your mom right now. Do you see that? And she said, no, I see two people sticking together. And I thought if you have a takeaway from this, that should be it. So.
Yeah. I think also the cancer journey is not linear. It's up and down, up and down, up and down with, diagnosis, surgery, in my case, treatment, and post-treatment, which was almost as rough as treatment. So I think that open dialogue is really important, because we didn't always have the answers right away. And in my case, the radiation for head and neck cancer is progressive. So things were becoming progressively more difficult for me. So, we would just say, look, the next 3 weeks is going to be really hard. So we were kind of informing her about things as they were coming up and just changing for us, because it was not a linear journey in any way.
Yeah, I really love the descriptions of you describing all kind of just coming together in a space, and whether you're working on your own projects or whatever, but that you guys were all in the same room, just kind of really being there for one another, and just that need for physical closeness, I think is really a beautiful image to think about it, and a way, and it helps us understand also that kids just need that physical closeness. They don't always need you to be talking and explaining. Sometimes they just need to be with you, and that with you can sometimes just mean I'm working in the same space as you. I don't have to be, laying on the bed or hugging you or whatever, but that I can just be in this space with you. I really also appreciate the comments about nonlinear. I think people think like, cancer is such a beginning and an end, of which it does, but in between that, there is a lot of ups and downs. And a lot of changes and things. And I think really maintaining those kinds of connections with our children helps them to better respond to those changes, whether they're anticipated changes or unanticipated changes, that they can be equipped to handle those when you have open and honest communication, and you've established a space where kids can come back to you at any time, as Kelsey also said. So I think that that the possibility of just being together as opposed to talking and sharing, I think is really, really an important thing for others to hear as well. I want to move on a little bit to bring in our professionals into the space as well. And of course, John and Trish, you are welcome to share also at any time your experience with these questions also. But Kelsey, let's start with you. What advice would you give to families of children at different stages of the disease? Are there things that you would do differently at one stage over the other, or is it pretty much just being really honest and a trusting relationship throughout?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much of what we've already discussed around building that establishing that sense of openness and honesty. But I think something that can be really important, and Trish, you stated about keeping things as normal as possible. That's easier said than done. There's a lot that's not normal when navigating cancer. But for kids, having some predictability or some consistency, even if it's predictability around what's going to change, can be really helpful. So that communication. And kids often worry about or prioritize things that are really different than the adults around them. And so the more we can listen to them, for kids who, are older and can articulate, or maybe they're showing us, they're not using words, maybe they're showing us with behaviors or with actions, really trying to understand what's bothering them, what's on their mind, because we may be focusing on the wrong thing. It may actually be, that I want physical closeness, or that I want to play, or that I'm, worried that I'm going to miss my soccer practice, right? And so when you're navigating cancer, that might feel minor, but for kids, that's really major. And so the more we can listen, we can identify what's really bothering them and what they need to hear and need to be supported with. So a lot of listening, but I think establishing that open communication up front allows kids to feel more comfortable sharing, just like parents want to protect their kids. And so we don't always want to share. Kids will then protect their parents and not share either. And so that open communication is really important. And your example of just being in the same space and, working or doing homework, finding ways to parent through the cancer experience, because there is so much that can feel lost or changed. And sometimes I think parents are often grieving what they can't do for their kids. And so finding ways to say, like, yes, but, right, it's going to look different. I might not be able to run and play right now, but I want to sit and watch you, or I want to hear about it, or there are things that we can do together and it might look different, and really embracing those changes, but not focusing so much on the can't or the no. It's really adapting and adjusting.
Yeah, I think I'll just add on a little personal experience. I think that Gramercy did have, I think she held in a lot because she thought that she didn't want to add to the burden, to the problem, right? So we were dealing with this huge problem. And I think that she felt like if she, had her moment of feeling the feels, which she did, but I think that she also, we were aware of the fact that she definitely did not, again, she was 14, 15, she didn't want to add to the problem. So we really needed to make sure, there were times when she would just cry on John's shoulder, but she didn't want me to know. But, so it's definitely a really hard thing for them emotionally, because they need to be allowed to experience it. But like I said, she also didn't want to be part of the problem. So
It's a really hard place to be in for both you as a parent and for you as for a child in this circumstance. Haley, Bright Spot really addresses some of the needs of even younger children, of much younger children. Can you talk a little bit about some of the ways that your organization supports children and families of really young children, and how and how parents can address the needs of their really of early childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as a parent of a young child, sometimes you hear the noise of your kid's not going to remember this. They're too young to really pick up on what's going on. And I think that what we try to always say to parents is that it's still really important to talk to their kids and shepherd them through this experience, even if they are quite little. And so some of the ways that we encourage doing that is reading to your kids. And we have on our website, you can go there and find a whole slew of books that are really just about helping kids to understand, another family. It's like a kid's book, right? About a family's cancer diagnosis. And a lot of families are already reading together before bed. And so it's a kind of familiar way to introduce cancer into the conversation, and a way for a family to kind of take that book and sort of make the leap and say, well, like, mommy, and to sort of begin that conversation. We also really talk about just like making sure that there's enough kind of opportunities for connection, that there's always opportunities for questions. And so the more that like kids and parents during a cancer crisis can connect, whether it's through art or through, we call it parenting from the couch, whether it's like whatever it is, just as long as there's that connection, then kids are going to feel more comfortable asking that question, whether it is before bed or in line at Target or, wherever it is, as long as they're asking that question and a parent is saying, like, let me answer it, maybe not right this second, but in a minute, I'm going to answer that question. I don't know the answer, but I'm going to get back to you with the answer. All of those are really great ways. I mean, not just for super little kids under 5, but for big kids too. I would say that those are some of the things that come to mind. And also, I just want to like lift up like when you have a baby, that it's also really helpful to talk to a baby. That's helpful for the parent because it can help you to verbalize some of the things that might be going on for you. But it's also good for a baby to, hear language and all of those other pieces. And so I just want to like kind of that a baby is also part of the, part of this conversation too, in kind of starting to talk about a cancer diagnosis and what will change. I know for me, when I was diagnosed, I had a baby and I was still nursing. And it was a really important part of my experience to be able to tell my baby, like this is going to stop. And that's, before either of us kind of expected it to. And, that was really therapeutic for me. And I like to think it was also therapeutic for her.
I think that's such a important point to bring up about infants. I think it's really common for people to say things like they won't remember this or they don't. And they may not remember the circumstance of things, but they will remember the tension or the stress that you're having in your body and sense those kinds of changes. And there's something really beautiful about sharing with your infant, the changes that are happening, and maybe you're not going to be there for a day or two, and letting your baby know that, right? And how, we don't know enough about what babies are hearing and understanding and processing. So I think there's something really, really, really beautiful about sort of going through those steps and talking to your infant in that way, and really including the infant in the journey as well, that they are a part of the family and that you are supporting that connection, whether that be through physical connection, verbal connection, or nonverbal connection, right? What are some tips and strategies that you recommend to parents to support their children? Jay, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you have any tips and strategies that you recommend to foster resilience in children?
One of the feelings that are often expressed is feeling alone. And I don't have any other people in my class, or none of my friends know what it's like. Or it might not even be verbalized, but you might sense the sort of isolation or maybe some withdrawal. And I think, being aware and then talking about that is very helpful and helps kids be seen. I think that children should never feel alone. And I come at it from my experience as a parent. I wanted to find ways or other people that my daughter could connect with, where she could feel like she was seen. People got her and really understood her. I think, in terms of advice, I think there's so much to think about, but I think finding ways for kids to be able to be kids at whatever age they are, what's most appropriate for them. Trish, what you mentioned about your daughter feeling like she might add to the burden or not wanting to talk about it. I think that is very, very common, and not wanting to make things worse. I think, in my experience of that, like saying to be okay. It's okay to have fun. You need to also be a kid. So look for ways and opportunities to let kids be kids. Find ways for connection, peer connection, family connection. Any little break that they can have from the worries that they are almost certainly feeling and experiencing at home helps the kids. It also helps when you're and having a break from what is otherwise a very worrisome experience.
I really love this idea of kids being able to be kids, that children need to step away from, kids sometimes need to step away from stressful experiences so that they then can come back and better cope with them. And play is the way the children do that, right? So giving them those opportunities to really engage in, developmentally appropriate play and activities that they are just allowed to have, that they're just allowed to have fun. Children often experience both like dual emotions at the same time. They can be both sad and happy, or anxious and excited, right? So that they have opportunities to share those kinds of emotions through their play, and engaging in fun things together also helps people feel like things are kind of a little normal. Kelsey, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, so one thing I'm thinking about a lot is our peer groups at Pickles Group, and we really kind of lean into the difficult conversations with cancer. And I think that that's why like all of these programs are so wonderful and complementary, because kids can kind of like step out and step in, and we want kids to actually practice having these difficult conversations with peers who get it, so that they're more equipped to have those conversations with their parent. And what we hear from parents is a lot of times like they came out of the group and they asked me about my chemo, right? Because they were with other kids who kind of help them know like we all get this, we can talk about this. And so practicing conversations, also practicing and developing coping skills, and I always say those are transferable skills, that we want all kids to know how to use in everyday life. And so we do a lot of educating, and social emotional learning around coping and emotions and breathing and mindfulness. And so that when they're also playing and having fun, it's intentional at times of like, this makes me feel good and this is why, and I need time to recharge my batteries and I need time to fill my cup. And so I think those two things can interact really well together. It's like stepping in and working through these things, and then also knowing how to step out. And I think as kids grow and develop, they kind of start to self-regulate how and when they need those different types of engagements.
Can I just add one thing? Is that when I'm listening to you, Kelsey, I'm also thinking about like parents need the inverse or the reverse of that also. That like I was just thinking about, parents having opportunities to talk to other parents, kind of, about the challenges of talking to their kids or not having the energy to do X, Y, and Z, and how therapeutic that is to them be able to take that conversation and have a little bit more, strength and reserve to have maybe a difficult conversation with their kid, or to continue a conversation that they really don't want to have. And that all of those things kind of like how they all sort of support each other.
Yeah, I think we all need opportunities
Yeah.
to step in and out of stress. It's how we manage stress, is by being able to step away, allow our bodies and brains to take a moment to breathe in a different space that doesn't feel so heightened all the time. I'm it's making me think a little bit about, finding those spaces or those moments of kind of normalcy, like, when you are playing with your child, or when you are engaging, whether you're maybe driving in the car and going someplace and dropping your kid off, that those things feel so normal, that those things are really important to continue, or at least to participate in and hear about from your children, or engage in with your child, to look for those kinds of things. And I think somebody said it earlier, it might have been you, Haley, that said it earlier, even if it is, or maybe Kelsey, just sitting and watching your child do something, or if you can't actively engage in it, and looking for those opportunities to just sort of have those normal kind of family moments throughout this journey, that everything doesn't have to be always in this kind of like cancer space all the time, for lack of better terminology.
Another way you can do that too is to let your children participate to the degree that they can in the caregiving, because we let our daughter participate in the caregiving part, and the result of that was that the cancer wasn't something that she didn't have any control over. She could impact it and move it, and it also let her it let her feel like part of the solution. And so cancer wasn't just happening to her; she was happening to her mom's cancer as well, and that was, she operated from a position of strength because of that a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's really, I like the framing of that, John, of that she was participating in the whole process in ways that were also really comfortable to her, and what she, that again goes back to your earlier comments about giving children choices about what they feel comfortable doing and participating in. Were you going to say something?
I was going to add, I think that giving your life can seem so far out of control for the kid and for the family, but I think giving the child a role and giving some agency is very empowering, and teaches a lot of, it provides a lot of benefits. I can get through this. I can do this thing right now. I can help my brother get dressed or pack lunch for school or go to the grocery store, or help in any manner of caregiving roles. That it lets them know that they can face and overcome challenges in big and small ways. And every little bit, I think, helps give them some more confidence that, yeah, I got through this. I got through today. I was helpful today.
I think that's great. It makes me also think a little bit about the child who doesn't want to participate in the medical stuff, or doesn't want to have a role in that sort of in various pieces of treatment. And so figuring out what are your child's strengths and the ways that they still can find ways to participate. It might be making a snack that you love, or providing a joke a day, or a joke when you go get treatment so the parent has something, or picking a book for their parent to read while they're while they're resting or getting treatment or whatever, so that there's lots of ways that children can still participate in care without it feeling always, especially for the child who doesn't want to know about or participate in some of the more medical aspects of the care. And I also love, Jay, just the ideas, what you're really talking about is resilience. I can do this. I can participate in a way that really supports my family, and it really kind of helps that family think together about what it means to thrive through the cancer journey. I want to switch a little, and Kelsey, can you share what are some red flag behaviors that parents should be looking for?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about ways to ideally prevent long-term implications through honest and open communication, choices, normalcy, and this is really hard. And there are times when this can take more of an extreme toll on any person in the family's mental health. And so some of the concerns you'd be looking for are when things feel really out of proportion with the situation, or prolonged or intense or disruptive. So maybe a kid who is having changes in their sleep, or changes in their eating behaviors, or difficulty going to school. Some of the, maybe some physical symptoms, stomach aches, headaches that are really prolonged and intense, and disrupting their ability to participate in their favorite things, or in their, their typical, function areas like school, or activities or play. So, and, like I said, I think a lot of our organizations, a lot of these conversations are about prevention, and really helping kids to thrive despite a parent's cancer. But it's really important to be aware of those things and to address them if and when they arise. Always good to ask, a pediatrician for recommendations, a school social worker, any faith-based or nonprofit organizations that have more of that individual support component. So those are all places to turn if a parent does have concerns about their child's mental health or well-being. And regression is not uncommon for the little ones. I'm sure Haley could speak to this a little bit as well. But when that's more extreme or disruptive, then it might be more of a concern.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's, there's lots of things that we're talking about today that can really support a family and help people stay together, but we also need to be aware of the ways in which that children share that they're struggling with us. So I think those are some really great insights into helping parents be able to identify when they might need additional support, or even look for a referral outside of their own family that they can get some extra help and support. I have some questions from our chat, and I think this first one is sort of relevant to this idea of what we're talking about right now. Someone posts, my grandson is going through a diagnosis right now. He's 11 and the biopsy results are inconclusive. They're struggling waiting for the doctor to get back to them, and the waiting is torture. What are, yes, absolutely. What are some ways that people might suggest to help a family that is in limbo, in that kind of limbo stage where you're not quite sure what's happening, but something is up, but you're not sure what that something is just yet.
Trish always says that cancer happens in 2-week segments. You get some news, and then you have to wait 2 weeks for the next news and 2 weeks for the next news. And one thing that worked for us was to from the outset say, look, this is going to be a long game. And there's going to say upfront, there's going to be spaces in this journey where we're not going to know, and where we're just waiting, and there's nothing that we can do about that. I think if you can get out in front of that and just make your child know that that's going to be part of a bigger process, that brings the heat down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going back to what Jay even said a little bit ago around control. And it feels really unsettling when there is so much out of your control, including waiting on results. And so really trying to focus on, what you can control. Like, I'm not the one who has the answer to these results, but what I can do is maybe try to check them once a day, right? Sometimes we get into the clicking habit, or, twice a day, and in between, I'm going to do something for myself. I'm going to get outside. I'm going to do something that is good for me, because there is such a lack of control. And the waiting doesn't always change the pace or the timeline. And so trying to think about, what I can do to help myself in this moment and what can I control. Certainly, it's also okay to advocate and nudge, if you feel like you need to send a message or you need to make a phone call, that's an okay thing to do as well. Like, everyone is advocating for themselves, and sometimes that's necessary in certain healthcare scenarios as well, to speak up and ask those questions when you have concerns.
Thank you. I might also add validating someone's feelings, saying it's really hard to wait. Right? It's really hard to wait. Like, it can be frustrating to wait, and then feeling, what can we do while we wait, right? That kind of stuff. Because especially for children, waiting can be very challenging and very difficult, especially when there isn't a known end game. So just really validating the feelings of the child, also that waiting is really hard, and that's true for whether we're a kid or an adult. I'd love to go around. We have someone that's asking about resources, maybe a book or a practice that we use, or that we turn to, that we might use to support a family, or that we've turned to in our own in anybody here's own cancer journey. When you're feeling things are overwhelming, or maybe it's something that you use to help kids cope, or an activity or a book. But I'd love to hear if everybody has an offering for that, that would be great. We have a listener who is curious to know about resources.
So I was not a meditator on a daily basis, but I did find myself going to, the apps online for daily meditation, or just kind of anything spiritual that would support me along the way. I had a lot of friends sending, me books and articles, or, quotes and things like that. And I would always offer them to our daughter and make sure that she knew that those were available. I'm not so sure how much she used them, But I found that to be, you know, in those moments of struggle and, you know, despair, where you need kind of that, I always think of it as like the hug of my guardian angel wings, right? When I needed that support, I would go to the online apps are great. And they have some that are geared specifically towards people that are going through cancer journeys or something medical. So I found that to be really helpful.
John.
This is going to be a little bit off center, but what worked for us a lot was humor. If you could make a joke about it, and have a laugh a day, it takes so much of the heat off the situation. Especially if I could make Trish laugh and Gramercy could see it, and it also made it less of a fearful experience, because if you can laugh about something, it takes a lot of the fear away. So, you know, one of the disciplines we had during this was to try to at least have a laugh a day, and a laugh at the child level, not at our level. A laugh at the child level, just to bring it down.
Wonderful. I love that.
That's what I love, the expression of parenting from the couch, because I was parenting from my reclining chair. But you know, John is just saying that as reminding me that even if I was in the chair, I was in the living room, I was part of the environment, we were connected, and I was, you know, we were laughing. And I think, yes, it was, but anytime that our daughter could see me engaging, interacting, and of course, laughter and laughing is a huge healer. So as much as we could do it, we did.
The number one stress reliever. Also during, we'll also be sharing with everybody about our 3 additional information with our nonprofit partners from Bright Spot, Pickles, and from Kesem. But I would love to hear from those 3 also. I would love to hear, Haley, do you have one specific thing that you recommend to families, that a resource that really, that a book or a resource or something that you typically recommend to families?
Well, I was going to actually say just like when I was navigating my cancer, there was 2 things that I always kept really close at hand. And one was everything felt so enormous. It felt so big and I was so overwhelmed. And even when I think about it, I can drop into that like enormity. And just my mantra to myself was just like, you know, all you can do is get through today. All you can do is get through this appointment. All you can do is get through this hour. All you can do is get through this minute. And just kind of like that's what helped me get through the day and get through ultimately, you know, that experience. And in a similar sense is, you know, what's one point of connection I can make with my kid today? It could be reading together. It could be doing a small art project. It could be watching your kid play. It could be asking them about their day. But what is like one moment that you can take and really connect with your kid, just to level set with both of you and how powerful that can be for both of you. And so with that, you know, Bright Spot offers a lot of really great resources, but to kind of go from there, I would just say that one of the really great resources that we offer is our Bright Box, which is an art kit for families, and everything is included in the art kit. We hear from parents things like, this was the first time I felt like a mom since my diagnosis. There's actually nothing cancer-y in it. There's no cancer education. It's really just meant to be a sweet point of connection between parent and child when things can feel really chaotic around you. And you know, you can order that for free on our website, along with other resources that you can find there and some upcoming programs we have for parents. But those are also things that you can just take from what's around you, and just kind of like really focusing in on like what are small connections that you can make that can really make a big impact.
I love that. I think people feel like it has to be so big and meaningful and this big, giant, grand gesture. And it really is. Parenting is so much just about those small moments. And the idea of using art, I think, is a great tool for connection and expression for children and families. Jay, do you have any go-tos that you recommend?
You know, it's very similar. I think, you know, what can you do that is relaxing and calming, but is also an opportunity for togetherness. So, baking brownies or making a friendship bracelet together, engaging in some sort of craft. Another way to think about it is um, enabling connection with friends, so that the social withdrawal, which can be so common, is less likely. And maybe that is also baking brownies together, having someone over, and enabling fun in at whatever age is, whatever activity is appropriate for your child's age. Um, giving them a break and letting them relax and smile and have fun, and teaching them that that's important and that's part of their job, is to be a kid.
Thank you. And Kelsey.
Yeah, so I would say that something that I think is really helpful is like trusting that you're where you're needed most, because you can feel like you're pulled in so many different directions. And sometimes where you might be needed most is at your clinic appointment or at your infusion. And other times it might be in your child's bed, or on the couch resting, right? And so it's like we can't be everywhere at once. And so trusting that you're where you're needed most. And I think a lot of what we've discussed throughout this discussion has really been about building memories regardless of outcomes. These are memories that I always talk about trying to make better memories out of difficult moments. So those moments of connection, or those, activities can be really helpful in creating some glimmers amidst a really hard time that can come with a lot of hard memories. So, in terms of Pickles Group, I would love to. This is perfect timing because all of our programming just launched yesterday, and we have one youth program registration date on September 5th. So any child between for first grade and 12th grade has a place to find a sense of belonging, to find their group of kids. These are closed groups. So we have a Connect Over Cancer program, which is a 5-week kind of first stop. Social emotional curriculum, learning about cancer, connecting with peers. And then our big launch is these Pickles jars, which are monthly meetings for both kids who have a parent with advanced, complex, or ongoing cancer, as well as kids who have lost a parent to cancer. So those kids are in different jars, and it's an ongoing monthly group. But again, they're closed groups, so they get to see the same kids every time, and they're facilitated by graduate students. But I design the content.
Thank you so much. I want to thank all of you for attending and sharing your expertise and your experiences with us today. It's been really informative. But before we go, we have one last poll. We'd love to hear from the people that are in the group watching today and listening. We need your input on the kinds of support that would be most helpful to you as we plan our own webinars and programming for Thank. So there is a poll that's being posted. So please do share your what you need or what you're looking for that we might be able to help with. All right. And in conclusion, thank you all for joining us today for supporting parents and kids through cancer. We're so grateful to our panelists. For sharing their heartfelt stories, experiences, and practical advice. It's been an incredibly insightful discussion. And as a bonus for attending today's session, you will receive a link to the full recording, which you can share with anyone you think might benefit. And we'll also include a few additional support resources, so be on the lookout for that valuable email. Please join us for our next webinar in September, where we'll be hosting a screening of the documentary Expression of Illness with director and thyroid cancer survivor Bryn Silverman. In addition to clips from the documentary, Bryn will share her personal experience navigating her health and discoveries she's made along the way. For more great resources about cancers of the thyroid, head, and neck that focus on the health and mental wellness of newly diagnosed patients, cancer survivors, and their caregivers, please visit the Thank Guide. The Thank Guide provides trusted information, support resources, and inspiration you need as you travel the difficult path of the cancer journey. We're so grateful to have partnered with Bright Spot Network, Pickles Group, and Custom for this webinar. Each of these amazing organizations supports families facing a parent's cancer, offering safe spaces, peer connections, and lasting communities to help parents, kids, and teens heal and thrive. It has been an honor to work alongside you today. As a thank you to our audience for tuning in, we'll be sharing, so keep an eye out for that email as well. And again, we'd like to take a moment to recognize EISAI and Lilly for supporting Thank's mission. Their dedication to empowering patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals helps drive meaningful conversation with a lasting impact. Thank you again for joining us for today's discussion. We hope you find it inspiring and helpful as you navigate your own journey. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar in September. So thank you all.
Thanks so much.